Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the second grade concept of geometry, specifically how we can start to understand the concept of area, and we'll do it in 5 minutes or less. So when we're talking about area, we are talking about the space inside, and that's going to be key, inside a shape. So we know how we could measure length and distance. But how can we measure inside of a shape? Most shapes are blank. Well, that's why I have these two grids on the screen. So let's say I'm just going to draw a square. And so here's my square. And you see I'm drawing it in green, and I'm drawing it on this grid paper so that we can imagine that there are little tiny squares inside. Because when we're looking at area, we're really looking at imaginary squares. In this case, I actually drew my square on top of a grid so we can see our squares. And we can measure how many little tiny squares are inside that shape. So if we count, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 across. So we're just going to count by fours. If we want, we can skip count by fours. I've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we've got 13, 14, 15, and then 16. So for this square, we can say the area equals, and remember we counted 16, and then what do we call those 16? Well, we're just going to call them square units. When you get a little bit older in 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade, you'll start naming those units as square inches or square meters or square yards or square feet. Right now, we don't know what those units are. We're just going to call them little tiny square units. So that is really what area is all about. So let's look at another shape. So I'm going to draw a rectangle this time. And let's see if we can figure out what the area is. And in both 2nd and 3rd grade, you will always have these little squares to count. In 4th grade, there will be no squares, and there's a different way to calculate area, but you'll learn that in a few years. So area, we're just going to call that A. Let's see, rather than putting a number in each square, let's see if I can use my skip counting. So I've got 1, 2, 3. So I'm just going to do columns of 3. I'm going to skip count by 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. I've got 21. If you need to double check, feel free to pause the video and go back and look. But we've got 21, so I can say 21. And then once again, we're just going to call them square units because we're not sure what type of measurement they are using. Let's look at one more example. As you can see, we have a much larger grid with much smaller squares. But we haven't named these squares yet as centimeters or inches or meters, so we're still going to call these square units. So I'm going to draw a long and skinny rectangle. So I'm going to start right there in the middle. I'm going to go quite a ways over. Let's see if we can figure out what this area is with this long and skinny rectangle. So first, let's see how many rows we've got. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4 rows. So it's probably going to be much too big to skip count. What I need to do is I need to figure out how many squares are in each row. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow. So I've got 13 in a row, and I've got 4 rows. I'm just going to add 13 4 times. And that should be able to take care of it for me. And so I've got 3, 6, 9, and that's 12. And then I carry the ones. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like my answer is 52. And remember, we're going to say square units. And if you remember the foundations of multiplication we're learning in 2nd grade, we can also say that's 4 rows of 13 equals 52 square units.